Urban Talk would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and the traditional owners of the land on which we record this podcast, the Gadigal of the Eora Nation. We recognise their continued connection to country and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. Welcome to the Urban Talk podcast, the show where we bring together communities, planners, developers and fresh ideas to shape the cities we all call home. Urban Talk is all about bridging the gap between the industry professionals building our neighbourhoods and the communities living in them. We're here to make conversations about urban development transparent, accessible and we hope exciting. In each episode, we'll unpack the issues, challenges and visions that shape our cities. I'm your host, Belinda Barnett. In this episode, we'll be discussing the initiatives being undertaken by the New South Wales Government to address housing supply shortages. These initiatives include the Low-Rise Homes Pattern Book that was released by the state government in July, the deployment of new modular homes to fast-track social housing delivery, and the establishment of the Housing Delivery Authority that was set up in November 2024 to accelerate housing using a streamlined state significant development pathway with a concurrent rezoning process. Shaping New South Wales through a well-located housing supply is not just a policy challenge, it involves delivering well-functioning, livable cities at an acceptable density. And to discuss this topic, we're joined by the New South Wales Minister for Planning and Public Spaces and the Minister for Wollongong, the Honourable Paul Scully. Welcome, Minister.
G'day, Belinda. Great to be with you.
Oh, fantastic to have you on board. So thank you so much.
Hopefully I can live up to the exciting expectation, at least meet that metric. But we're doing some exciting things, so we should be able to.
You certainly are, and I'm so pleased that you're here today to be able to discuss those with us. Early in the year, we did a podcast with one of your predecessors, Rob Stokes. And the first question that I asked Rob was whether it was his experience that the New South Wales Minister for Planning planned our cities. And I have to say, he was very, very quick to answer no. And it was his lived experience that the Minister for Planning was effectively the Minister for Land Valuation, right, because, I guess, of the role played in rezoning land. And he felt that the Minister for Transport planned our cities because essentially urban development followed the rail tracks. So, Minister, to start this podcast, I'd like to ask you the same question. You've been in the role for Minister for Planning and Public Spaces in the Minns government since around April 2023. Yep. So you're just over 2 years in. So, does the Minister for Planning plan our cities?
Not alone. Not alone. Look, it really is under this government, and each government, I think, takes its own course and its own course of action. It's certainly not a process of, I don't know, doing a real-life version of SimCity or something like that. But and it's certainly not a task that I do alone, because the enabling infrastructure, whether it be water and wastewater, roads and the like, are done and the responsibility of other ministers. The community supporting infrastructure, health services, schools and the like are responsibility of other ministers. So in that sense, I say that we all work in together. The cabinet is a very a good functioning unit as a discrete sort of body, and I've got a premier who's very interested in tackling the housing challenges. So not alone.
Not alone. I like that. I like that. I like team effort. I think that's a great answer. So thank you. So let's start by talking about the pattern books.
Yep.
In New South Wales, the government is focusing on low and medium-rise housing to fill the gap between detached housing and high-density apartments. And you refer to this form of housing as the missing middle. In July of this year, you launched the first of the two pattern books aimed at increasing low and mid-rise housing in our neighbourhoods. In my view, the Low-Rise Homes Pattern Book is a really refreshing body of work from the government. So congratulations to you, to your team and to the New South Wales Government Architect. In the foreword to the Low-Rise Pattern Book you wrote, we need to be able to see ourselves in the homes and neighbourhoods we create. That statement really resonates with me. I love it. And I think all members of the urban development sector who work on housing projects should actually have that phrase as their motto. What I love about the designs in the Low-Rise Homes Pattern Book and the accompanying landscape guidelines, which I think that was a fantastic
Right, that was
initiative.
That was a good move.
Really
to
good
do that
move.
alongside it.
Was that they embody the Australian lifestyle. They are easygoing and they're practical. And we have a materials palette that returns to brick and timber and moves away from render. The homes have a welcoming, I guess, they welcome the street frontage. They interact with the street frontage. They talk to the street frontage. And the designs, I think, encourage residents to talk to each other rather than, we've had this situation where a lot of developments are just almost like turning their backs on the neighbours. And these homes, I can imagine living in any one of these designs and feeling like I can knock on the neighbour's door and say, can I borrow a cup of sugar? Yeah. That was certainly something that I grew up with. And I love that.
It's part of the intent.
To me, the designs really nurture community. So, and that's really, for me, at the heart of what makes a house a home. And I love the fact that you've called the pattern book the Low-Rise Pattern Homes book.
Correct.
Not just a housing book.
Correct, yeah.
So congratulations on that too. So, Minister, there may be listeners who haven't had the benefit of being able to pick up the pattern book and have a look or jump onto the website. So to start the podcast, can you give us a snapshot of what the Low-Rise Homes pattern book embodies? Sure. And why you did and what you set out to achieve?
Well, I was pretty surprised when I was put into the position by the Premier that just how out of kilter things had sort of gotten, particularly in Sydney. I was stunned when the government architect said to me, well, we've actually got less housing diversity today than what we did 100 years ago. And that led to exploring that option. And basically there had been a range of different housing types that had been progressively banned effectively from being able to be submitted in certain areas. And these are the sorts of housing types, terraces, townhouses and the like, that have been part of the evolution and growth of Sydney. Now, my core view is that cities aren't museums. They've got to grow and evolve and adapt and change as we do and as our lifestyles do. And that's what part of the low-rise pattern book work is about coming up with a good approach to design where we can have, and as the government architect I think really puts it well, democratising design, making sure it's available to everyone. And the government in the current climate where we've got a housing challenge that we've got to address, we're not trying to make people live in the confines of the house. We're trying to make the house work or the home work for people. And that was sort of the underlying philosophy in this. Pattern books aren't new. Been around since Mrs. Macquarie brought first one to Australia. But this is a new take on an old concept that I hope will get thousands of people into homes into the future.
Yeah, I hope so too. The book, there are 8 adaptable designs.
Yep.
And it's a fabulous initiative that people can download any one of the 8 patterns, at least for the next 6 months.
And they've been doing them in huge numbers.
Excellent. For only $1. What a great initiative that was.
I know, the Treasurer loves it.
So tell us, what has been the uptake?
Well, so far, and I've just had some numbers, refreshed numbers this morning, just under 455,000 page visits.
Fantastic.
Which is pretty good for a government website. So credit to the government architect and her team. Abby and her team have done a fantastic job on this. They have done a fantastic job. But just over 36,600 preview downloads and patterns sold just under 12,000 so far.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So,
that's really good.
We set the price at $1 for the first 6 months. It absolutely is an enticement, right? Let's not kid ourselves what it's about. But it was about encouraging people to explore the option. Coupled it with a 10-day complying development pathway. That's the real secret sauce to this one. But the aim is to get people to have a look at it, to then adapt to the design because they are slightly adaptable, to get them out because and for the government to take on that risk of funding good design. Like literally saving tens of thousands of dollars for people.
Well, it's one of the key issues, I think, whenever you are sitting down with a client and, a client wants to know, well, what can I build? What can I develop on this site? And I love the way, the pattern book gives you a very clear indication of what can be approved very quickly, as you say, in a 10-day sort of complying development pathway. So it just de-risks the whole process for people.
That's the aim. That's the aim. And the aim is to genuinely get good design into the streets and suburbs of New South Wales. They're not limited to metropolitan areas. They're good for regional areas as well. They're good housing typologies that work for families, for singles, for older downsizers. And then later in the year, we'll have a mid-rise version of the same thing coming. So stay tuned.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So when you look at the designs, I really love the Manor Homes design by Studio Johnson. Is there one that stands out to you that you'd pick if you were doing a development?
I think the Manor Home's quite good, but I'd also quite like the row home idea. So but they're hard to pick from. They're all really, really good. They've all got their own great elements to it, and that's what's fantastic. Like if the challenge we've set people out of this is we make it hard to choose from a range of good designs, great. Because that means good designs will be taken up. And at the end of the day, that's what we're about, and that's what we all should be about. I said very early on in my my capacity as minister to a property council function, don't build crap, right? Because people don't want to see that next door to them. People don't want to see it in their streets and their suburbs. This is a way of pushing the boat out on that. That was said in a context of quality as well as design quality as well as build quality. Doing some work with my colleagues on the build quality and making sure that's overseen. But this is really good work by a lot of really clever people on the good design element.
Oh, no, it is. It's a great body of work. I want to go back, I guess, to the beginning because we've seen the outcome, but I always feel that it's really great to talk about the process.
Yep.
So, and the starting point of any process, and often I think we forget to talk about it, but I think it's really important, is to understand the project brief that is set and then to talk about how that brief is then implemented, because then we can truly embrace, I guess, what has been put out and what the outcome is. So, Minister, can you take us through that process? What was the project brief? I don't know whether it was the Premier that gave it to you or you and the Premier gave it to the government architect.
It was iterative from both of us to the government architect. So essentially, it was to the government architect, the challenge the Premier and I set was come up with a series of designs that people can select from that are affordable, that are sustainable, and that are beautiful.
Okay.
Yeah, that sounds easy.
So, each of those are very big words.
These two parliamentarians saying, just come up with this. That should be fine. Then get a blank piece of paper and go for it. But I think we've had a number of architects and groups of architects that have risen to the challenge. I think the suggestion by the government architect to include the landscaping plan was a very, very sensible one. We see that too often. The landscaping is the last bit. People spend a lot of time, effort, and energy getting the home right, and the inside perhaps, and the connections to outside, particularly in the Australian environment, don't necessarily get the chance to spend the same amount of time on the outside. So easy task.
Easy task.
But one that's been delivered upon. And,
absolutely.
And as I said, stay tuned for the mid-rise designs later in the year. We've seen the outcome of the international design competition for some of the mid-rise options. They've been available and out there for a little while, but we'll see the pattern book elements to it soon.
Yeah, no, that will be exciting to look at. So who is the pattern book aimed at? Who do you hope will take up these designs?
Everyone.
Everyone.
Genuinely everyone, because it's not about making you live in the home, it's making the home work for you. And I think that's an important element to it. It's not absolutely fixed in stone. These aren't tablets from the mount. There's the idea had to have a degree of flexibility. Now, obviously, that's got to be contained and curtailed to some degree because to maintain it within the complying development pathway. But it flexes. So that it can work for the young couple who are going into their first home, or the older couple who are downsizing out of a larger suburban home to free that up for a young family, and moving into something that's more practical for them. It also works from an accessibility element because we've got the silver standard there, but it can be upgraded to gold standard as well, and of course all done in a sustainable all electric manner.
Yeah, and I look, and the designs are very adaptable, going down to sites as low as 450 square meters through to like 800 square meters for the manor home. So I think that
because we don't have a set, particularly in Sydney, but in all of New South Wales, we're not, and it's not always standard blocks that we're dealing with. So we've got to make sure that if you've got a pattern book approach, you can have it work for a non-pattern book cadastre, I guess. You might describe it as that way.
Yes.
So Sydney didn't set out to have this sort of pattern book in mind in a couple of hundred years after European settlement, but we've got to recognise that that's what we're dealing with.
No, absolutely. The government seems to be looking at quite innovative ways to encourage the take-up of the pattern book. Can you talk about some of those initiatives, such as the strategic alliance you formed with Bunnings?
Yeah, well, it's the team from Bunnings said, well, there's nothing in there that you can't get from a Bunnings store. Now, that's not an ad. No. Just to be clear, but that's part of the aim. Is the aim of this is to make sure that it can be taken up, that we can get economies of scale in builders can get and developers can get economies of scale in procurement, that we can reduce the amount of waste that's produced, that it's adaptable for modular construction, and so that we can roll it out at speed, and adding that to the sort of world first 10-day complying development pathway. All of the elements are aimed at working together to get them into our streets and suburbs, no matter where you are, whether you're in Tweed or whether you're in Albury, whether you're in Broken Hill or whether you're in Bondi.
Have you thought about reaching out to Scotty Cam and getting the block to do, a season?
I'd love to see that.
I think that would be fantastic. Or even Anthony Burke on Grand Designs.
Yeah, I think what we have done is nominated some government sites where we will be building them ourselves, so that people can see them, and go in and feel and touch and get a bit more sense of it. So it's Sydney Olympic Park, Landcom are doing some, Homes New South Wales will be doing some. So we're doing that. But if Scotty Cam or the team from the block are listening, we'd love to have a chat. I think that we explored that, but the timing didn't quite work as to when they were in production for this season. But block or a competitor, if someone else wants to start it, we're willing to have a chat.
It'd be a great way to popularise it, I think.
Yeah, it would be. It's imagine the prospect of the sort of good designs being on display to everyone, and people recognising, hey, I could live in that. I could work in that. I could, grow my family in that, and that home.
Yeah, and just on that, I guess. I mean, when I look at the patterns, I like the way, like the flexibility of them. In that, many of them have a 2-bedroom or a 3-bedroom or even a 4-bedroom layout. That ability to be able to choose whether you want one, large family bathroom or go to two smaller bathrooms.
These are all the questions that people ask and want to be able to change, and that's why we describe it as not making you live in the home, making the home live for you in a way, so that there is that level of adaptability, so that does cater for different circumstances, different individuals, different aspirations of people. I mean, my parents, if they were looking at one, I'm sure would want one with at least a spare room for the grandkids to come over. Whereas my brother or sister of younger kids would want to see one where that they could grow, have a sort of what might be a playroom now turn into a study into the future. So as the kids grow, So, and I think that's an important part of homes, is that they can adapt around you, not you adapt to them.
Yeah, exactly. I want to just, touch on the use of the term affordable. We talk about the designs in the pattern book being affordable. Affordability, I think, at the moment, when we, in planning circles, has a variety of different meanings. In under some housing policies at the moment, where the use of the term affordability relates to housing that is produced by a developer, and in return for that they get an uplift in height and density, and that affordable housing component of a development is then handed over to a community housing provider.
That's one way.
In the context of the pattern book, What does affordable mean?
Well, the context of the Patent Book, it's about some of those things we were describing earlier, the economies of scale that you might be able to get in terms of procurement of materials, the fact that you can reduce the amount of waste on a site. So again, getting some benefits out of the cost side of the equation there. The fact that you're saving tens of thousands of dollars coming up with a bespoke design and getting it done. The saving of time and money of not being part of the complying development pathway. The fact that they've been designed in such a way that they can be modular construction methods or mod methods of construction can be used to deliver them. So it's about scalability.
Right. Okay.
Right. So affordability in this sense means that you can drive down elements of your cost curve. That's the economist in me coming out. So drive down elements of your cost curve so you're able to deliver them at speed and at a lower price.
Because I think
although we're not averse to community housing providers taking up the option either.
So
in that sense, the capital H affordable housing could be part of this as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, certainly the schemes and the designs would work well for community housing. I was fortunate enough to be at the launch of the Patent Book, and you've touched on it a little bit, but there was a noticeable, I guess, gasp in the room.
That's what we were hoping for.
When it was announced that you were looking at a 10-day approval timeframe because of the use of the complying development pathway, and very confidently said that construction could start on day 11.
Yep, it could. It absolutely could. Yep.
So you firmly back that the 10-day timeframe is achievable.
Yeah, so that's in place and it can be done. So the process is pretty straightforward. You've got to get essentially a tick off from an architect or designer to say that yes, this complies with the Patent Book. So you haven't gone too far beyond what it should be, and then you should be able to use a certifier to give you the tick within that 10 days, and you can get on with the task, which is exactly what we want to see. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't have situations where not every situation the complying development pathway might work. You can still go through a DA pathway. It's not blocked for you, but it was designed, and the pathway was designed with the patterns to coincide with the patterns and work with the patterns. So because one works with the other, as I said earlier, it's the secret sauce of this is the speed at which you can do great design. Well,
we have a lot of conversations about the need to cut red tape. And
yes, comes up frequently.
Comes up very frequently. So I think this is a great initiative. So I will certainly, and I'm sure a lot of people will watch with interest on that 10-day approval timeframe. Because I mean, it's my personal view that we should be, there is the opportunity to be using those exempt and complying development provisions a lot more.
That's right.
Across, I guess,
across
all
a
wide range of planning areas. I mean, particularly where we've got, such a shortage of planners across Australia and particularly in New South Wales at the moment. And, it just makes good sense because those provisions under the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act, when they're used correctly, can certainly be used to cut a lot of red tape.
It's interesting you should mention that because, in New South Wales at the moment, 90% of development applications are for projects of $1 million or less.
Yeah.
So we're quite literally sweating the small stuff.
Yes.
And when you point out that we do have limitations on our planning workforce, councils have challenges in terms of making sure that they can assess things and the like. We've got to start seriously asking the question, what can we do better? What can we do at speed? What can we use AI-enabled tools to assist us with in literally dealing with the small stuff?
Yep.
So
and there's an
stay tuned.
I will. I'll be very much stay tuned for that because anything that takes I hate doing a compliance table, I tell you. As a planner, it's the worst thing doing a compliance table. So anything that's going to take that pressure off is going to be very welcome by this planner, that's for sure.
Yeah, good.
Let's move and talk about some of other housing policies that you're pursuing. And I guess just to set the scene, just for maybe for some listeners that aren't across it, I'll just touch on the National Housing Accord. Mm-hmm. So the Accord, has created an unprecedented push to increase housing supply, and it sets an aspirational target of 1.2 new well-located dwellings over the next 5 years.
Yep.
And the New South Wales target under the Accord is 377,000 new homes to be delivered between July 2024 and July 2029, which is no small ask. It's huge.
No, it is a challenge. Absolutely.
Huge. And you're rising, I guess, to that challenge with a range of policies that sit alongside the low and medium rise pattern books, and they include the Transit Orientated Development Program and the establishment of the Housing Delivery Authority, or the HDA as it's commonly referred to. And you've set housing targets for 43 local councils across the state.
And one for regional New South Wales.
One for regional. I think that's 55,000.
It is, yes.
Yep. So, we're not that far in. I guess we're just over a year into that. But what's our scorecard looking like?
Look, we came to office when I came, and the incoming government brief, they give you a big folder. It's basically all the problems you're going to have. It was a big folder.
I'm surprised it's only one.
Well, that was just for the planning part of the portfolio. But in that, the forecast was for housing growth was 180,000 homes over that period, so 36,000 a year. Already, what we've done is concentrate on building the pipeline.
Yep.
Right? Because if you don't build the pipeline of lodgements and approvals, you can't get the construction underway, you can't get the completions. So what we've done so far with all of the things you listed, the transport-oriented development, the Housing Delivery Authority, the pattern book, the work around the affordable housing, infill affordable housing bonus scheme, all of those things have been about building the pipeline. And I'm pleased to say it is working. It's slower than what I'd like. We've still got a lot more work to do, but the numbers are heading the right way. So we've got average DA processing times have fallen from 116 days in April 2023 down to 83 days now. Again, more work to do, but we're going the right direction. Right. So at the same time, we've had over 100,000 lodgements in the last financial year for dwellings. We're seeing an increase in the number of approvals. We're seeing an increase in the number of construction starts. So all of those are heading in the right direction as well. We've just got to do more. All right, we've got to make it easier to build in New South Wales. We can't pretend that doing the same thing that led us to the circumstances we find ourselves in. If we keep doing the same thing, suddenly it's going to be different? No, it's not. Yeah. If you bang your head against a wall enough, it still hurts when you bang your head against a wall again another time. So we had to make changes. We had to reform the system. We had a confused and confusing system that we inherited, and we're trying to address that. So what we've done in the first instance is look at that pipeline, to grow that pipeline to get it come through. The Minister for Skills is doing a lot of work on building the pipeline of skilled workers to be able to build them, as well as build the infrastructure projects and build out our renewable energy aspirations, because we've got to renew our energy system at the same time as all of these other things are going on. But I'm pleased, as I say, I would say more work to do, but an improvement. I think the completion numbers for the first 3 quarters, because there's a bit of a delay, we're using ABS statistics as the measure. For the first 3 quarters was 33,000. Completions, which is a little above the year before in total. So we're progressing, but still plenty of work to do.
No, I mean it's a huge challenge, particularly when you stop to think about, you think about a housing project, even a high density housing project, and there might be 100 apartments in a high density housing project, and then you think of 377,000 dwellings.
Right.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's
and
a lot of
about 2/3 of those were sort of coming into the planning system at some point in time, whether sort of interest, whether they were DA approved or not. So we've got, I think it's 74,000 dwellings that are currently under construction in New South Wales. We're also seeing the number of homes that are approved but not yet commenced starting. That's falling, that number, so that's important. And what we announced in the budget, which is a really quite exciting initiative and a world-leading one, is a pre-sale finance guarantee to try and help get that construction started earlier. That's the next phase of our work.
The Housing Delivery Authority, let's sort of dive into that quickly.
Yep.
So I guess that was commenced at, I think it was the end of 2024, November
Yeah,
2024.
open for expressions of interest on the 8th of January this year.
That's right, exactly. And look, it's, the HDA has its supporters.
Yep.
And it has its critics.
Yep. Like every decision in the planning system.
Exactly right. I guess, and some of the criticisms of the HDA, I guess, have included, concerns that local councils are having their planning powers circumvented, community members are not being consulted adequately about the projects. There's been concerns about the use of like a state significant development pathway for housing, and is that really what the state significant development pathway was actually set up for? Is a housing project actually state significant? The fact that development applications are being dealt with on a site-by-site basis, and is that somehow eroding, I guess, precinct planning by local councils, and whether adequate consideration, I guess, is being given, again, to the burden that these applications place on community infrastructure. So, Minister, what do you say to the critics?
Oh, well, look, I'd start by saying what the HDA is not, right? So the HDA is not an approval body.
Yep.
Right. So after an SSDA is lodged, things haven't changed. There's been no change in that process. But as I said earlier, we've gotten to a situation by continuing. We can't continue to do the same things and think we're going to get a different outcome. We've already been able to, increase substantially the pipeline, but the HDA is an optional effort, but it's also a recognition that on large and complex projects that often need a lot of work from the state, that the state's in a good position to guide that and corral and harangue and harass whatever may be needed to get the decisions out of other state government agencies. So it remains an optional pathway. You can still take exactly the same development down to your local council and go through that way if you like. What's happened to date is there's been a number of expressions of interest. There's 600 odd we're up to at the moment. The HDA is meeting regularly and progressively going through those at the moment. I've declared 187 projects as state significant development because they are significant. These are large residential projects. So the question of should the state significant development pathway be used for this? Absolutely. Absolutely. If you're not willing to use that pathway for large and complex projects in the middle of a housing crisis or to address a housing challenge, then when do you use it? Right. So we've got to do something differently. So, but once a declaration happens, the exact same process would happen as any SSD. SEARs are issued. There's a use it or lose it provision on this. So if you don't get your detailed plan and supportive technical studies in within 9 months, you lose your declaration. That's it. It's over, right? Because delivery is in the title. Right. So then you go through the normal process that the agencies are consulted. The public exhibition process happens as a response to submissions and the like before any approval may or may not be granted in the end. Councils, we engage councils in the process to check in the beginning, but also engage them further on. And a number of councils have come to us and said, hey, can we get a seat at the table when you're looking at the detail? Because they want their planners to get the exposure as to how that works within the state system and work with the state agencies. For those who are worried about precinct planning, we are using our strategic planners to come in and provide guidance and advice and assistance and a greater understanding of where there might be challenges in that interplay between commercial or the non-residential commercial and residential in certain areas. So it's not throwing out everything. And what it is, though, doing is introducing it is the state playing a role for large residential developments in the middle of a housing challenge to address our housing challenges in a way that it hasn't done before, but in a way that maintains the integrity of the planning process.
Yeah, look, and if we look back historically, the state government has really always taken the lead in housing.
Right.
I remember going.
Oh, at one stage, the federal government helped us. I mean, Western Sydney would probably half of it is still could conceivably be on sewer unless the Whitlam government stepped in, and that is a city shaping decision.
Yeah.
You know, in the same way that the metros, and we credit the previous government with doing that, but what they didn't, they spent the billions on building the metros, but didn't do the housing and rezoning and the like that should go around it. That's the bit we're trying to address.
Yeah. Yeah. And that
And
makes,
again, it
makes
remains
sense.
optional. And councils are, I have to say, councils are saying to people, how can we make sure that you come through us?
Yep.
Which is good. It's a good thing because they're also stepping up their game as well.
Yeah, no, you're right. It is a good thing. It's a shake-up. I want to go to and start talking about modular housing. It's
Sure.
a bit of passion of yours.
Yeah, look.
Can you take us back to maybe a role that you were in prior to becoming planning minister?
Yes.
When
yes.
you were, tell us, because a lot of people may not
Well,
know that side of your career path.
Sure. I was the Chief Operating Officer of the Australian Institute for Innovative Materials at the University of Wollongong. Now, I was the sole economist in a building full of very, very clever materials engineers and material scientists and the like. But one of the other things I did was I assisted a group of students, among others. You know, I was just one part of a team in coming up with and participating in the Solar Decathlon Housing Challenge. Now, for those unfamiliar, this is a global challenge. Universities come up with a design, they ship it. In this case, it was to China. They rebuild it in a couple of weeks, and then they go through a decathlon, so 10 challenges that test the energy efficiency and environmental integrity of that home build and design. It was hard. The University of Wollongong had never entered it before. We haven't got an architecture school there, so it was the engineering students led by with the commerce students and the art students, an interdisciplinary group. They retrofitted an old miner's cottage, a typical house in the Illawarra, and then they went through a series of tests. They had to host a movie night only using the energy they'd been able to generate and store on site. They had to see how dry they could get 10 kilos of wet towels, and then a series of other challenges like that, because it was all about how much energy they could generate and store and use on site, and do that. They came first.
Oh,
Congratulations. First entry, and they won. But that showed that you can do this.
Yeah.
That was a retrofit, but you can do it in a new design, and you can do it in such a way because you had to pack it into shipping containers to get it to China and get it back. And it showed that you can break down a house in a sensible sort of way that allowed you to do it and do modular design well. And modular construction well. And that's what we're trying to achieve and encourage in New South Wales as well. As part of our industry package, it underpins our pattern book of designs. We're already using it in terms of social housing, social housing builds. Look, we have to look at this in the context of productivity of the construction sector, the approach of new innovations and reducing waste, reducing interruptions on site for neighbours. While the Northern Hemisphere has to contend with snow in winter, in the not too distant future, we're going to have really, really hot building sites over a longer period of summer.
Yeah. Well, no, it's great. So tell us a little bit about how it's being used for social housing, because you, down in your own electorate, you've basically completed the delivery of the first three modular social housing homes.
Yep, that's
so
exactly
tell us about that. How is
the first three are there in a couple of suburbs of Wollongong, and it was a test. We had a group, Minister Jackson, the Minister for Housing, which is responsible for the social housing part, convened a group of people to see how we could do modular housing, see how we might be able to do it at scale in the future, see where government leadership could build that pipeline that needed people to invest in the equipment to do it. We've got the first few in the gong, which is great. Couple of different designs, but they've been able to go on to Homes New South Wales sites. We've got people living in them. I've had no complaints so far, so they must be good.
Excellent. And you've got another 90 to come.
That's right.
In the next year.
Yeah. So it's building that pipeline, encouraging people to make the investment so that they do it, because a lot of small and medium businesses who might be interested in getting into this like to see this pipeline, particularly their lenders like to see the pipeline so that they can get the capital and see that this works. We've been doing it for a long, long time with schools. We've been doing it for a long time with police stations, and the Northern Hemisphere has been doing it for a long, long time in housing. So we're not that different to everywhere else. So we should be able to look at this as not the complete solution, but certainly an addition to our capacity to deliver more homes.
Yeah, fantastic. And are the prefab homes being manufactured in Australia? Are they?
Yes,
New South Wales based industries?
They're being manufactured here, and our industry policy and our desire to see Minister Hughes has the responsibility for domestic manufacturing. We've all got a desire to see more of those jobs in New South Wales, our production in New South Wales, and we can grow the construction workforce about this too. One of the big challenges that you hear, particularly for women getting involved in the construction industry, is construction site toilets. If anyone's ever been to one, you probably understand why. But if you're doing more modular construction, it's at a factory setting.
Yeah.
Right. So you've got the advantages of it being attractive to more women to get involved in construction. You've got the same site every day. You can arrange to do family responsibilities with your partner and drop the kids off and pick them up. But you've got the certainty of site. You've reduced the weather effects that can slow down construction.
Absolutely.
So there's some real advantages to it. Will it replace everything? No. Is it a good addition to how we build? Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to talk, we've touched on a little bit, but I guess this sort of the relationship between state government and local councils. Traditionally there's always a push-pull relationship. I mean, that's how I like to talk about it.
And look, I think there will be forevermore.
and you're absolutely right, And traditionally, state governments, as I said previously, have taken the lead, I guess, and required local councils to prepare housing strategies.
Yep.
And unfortunately, traditionally, many of those housing strategies, I guess, were undercooked. And they just didn't go far enough.
Some of them were even used to prevent housing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I know, and I've been involved in some of those over my history of my career. So under your watch, Minister, how do you feel the state-local government relationship is going?
Oh, look, it has its good days and its bad. I think it'd be the way to describe it. But look, local government is a signatory or is part of the housing accord process, and I think you'll find that there's in a lot of councils there's new councillors in there. There's certainly a desire from the planners who are in there to get good planning outcomes for their cities and their suburbs to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. Yes, on occasion we've had some pushback on some elements, but I mean, let's take the transport-oriented development program. When we announced the first 37 of those, or 35 we did was originally, and then it expanded. We had councils asking us to add more, to consider more sites. Great. We've all said to the 13 councils, that are hosting those locations, if you want to go further, great, we'll work with you to do that. And as a result, we've got 12 out of the 13 councils who have come on board, they're completely on board, and we're working with Ku-ring-gai Council as the 13th where they've put forward to us an alternate proposal that we're looking at in detail at the moment. So we're seeing, hats off to local government. They do get a bad rap on a number of things over a long period of time, but I think you see that they're now working cooperatively with us because they recognise that they want to get good outcomes for their communities as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, as you said at the beginning of the podcast, our cities are not museums.
No, they're not.
And, dealing with urban change, it's one of the hardest things.
It is, and everyone blames the council, whether it's someone playing loud music too late at night or if the grass is a bit longer down the local park than they'd like or whatever it may be. But, there's a lot of pressure on them and there's a lot of pressure on planners at council. I think... Well, you can see it just in the performance results. That all of them, since we've started publishing the league tables of performance, have dropped 116 days down to 83. Councils now are actively pursuing options as to how they might be doing, how they could do better. They've asked the department and asked the government if we'd be willing to support them in engaging planning experts to improve their internal processes. We've got a number of them that are looking at AI-enabled tools at the moment to make things more efficient. So, I think in the main, In the main, there's most councils are wanting to get on board and being part of the housing solution, not part of the housing problem. It's not universal, though, I have to say.
No. Well, it's a shake-up, isn't it?
That's right.
As we
That's
said
right.
at the outset, it's a shake-up and it's a necessary shake-up.
Yeah. Yep.
So, we're getting identify, I guess, future areas for further work, and
that's right.
and as you said, you're making inroads in
Look,
other areas.
If it was easy, if there was one silver bullet or one lever that a planning minister could pull and would solve the problem, I think any of my predecessors would have done that. The reality is there's not, and we have to attack all bits of the system. It's why we're supporting the workforce too. We introduced the first ever TAFE paraplanning course.
Yes,
so that cadets at council might look at that as an option, use some of the financial support we've provided for scholarships to build that planning workforce, and even if it's a generalist cadet, they might be able to be engaged in assisting the planners on one day, assisting the HR team or assisting the finance team on other days, and
absolutely.
be part of that streamlining of administrative tasks.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great initiative, great and necessary initiative. So you've got another 2 years to go, roughly, I guess, in your portfolio. Yep. Can you share with us a couple of?
I'm glad the Premier's let you know that. That's
key
good.
priorities. Well, I would not. Well, I'm hoping you're going to have another 2 years to go in your portfolio. What do you see as, I guess, your future priorities that you'd like to tackle?
Yeah, look, we're having conversations with the opposition at the moment for some legislative change. We've reached the point where we've probably maxed out the things that we can do and the changes we can make through using the planning system and act and the like. But there's a whole host of court cases and regulations and planning circulars and all the other stuff that's built up over a period of time. I describe it a bit like cholesterol. I might have a burger at lunchtime, a kebab on Saturday night, and something else that's less than optimal next week. And individually, those are great decisions. Collectively, probably not good for the long term, and that's what sort of happened with the planning system. The only way we can address that is through the Parliament and through some legislative reform. So we've been having constructive conversations with the opposition. As I said earlier, we're seeing 90% of DAs are for $1 million or less. Things that are being assessed, things that should have been dealt with at the assessment stage are being kicked over into the construction certificate stage. So there's been basically a more than doubling of the number of conditions that are placed on things at the moment. You get weird anomalies with complying development, where if you've got a 300 square metre block and you're 9.9% of landscaping rather than 10%, and that's like less than 5 A4 sheets of paper, you go off into into the full merit assessment process, which is an average of 60 odd days. The state government needs to do better too. When you come in for a concurrence or referral, you can be sent off to one of 22 or one or more of 22 different agencies. The first one adds about 54 days. The second and beyond, subsequent 100 days. We can make that better too. We should be able to be better at that in this day and age. We should be able to better integrate digital technology in the way that we not make decisions but do the assessment, always having a human decision maker there at the end. So there's things that we can do, things that we need to do. So that's the next part of that agenda.
Well, that'll be exciting.
Yeah, it'd be good.
I hope you come back on the podcast
I'd be happy to.
Talk more about that.
Because there's probably going to be a fair bit involved in some of those elements, and there's probably a task in demystifying some elements of it
absolutely.
As well, or at least explaining what we're seeking to achieve.
Just before we bring the podcast to a close, one last question. What would you like your legacy to be as the Minister for Planning and Public Spaces?
Wow. 2 years in, you often wonder if that's a bit early to be talking about legacy. But look, I think there's a couple of things that I'm really quite pleased that we've been able to do. One is to better integrate sustainability in terms of environmental sustainability into it, into the system, into design, and have that as part of it. But the other one is I would like affordable housing not to be an afterthought, but just integrated from the beginning. And I think that's starting to happen. Our infill affordable housing bonus has seen more than 10,000 homes under assessment at the moment, including around just short of 25% of those, or a quarter of those, are affordable. There's been 5,000 affordable and market dwellings approved under that. If we can get to the point where we're thinking about making sure that the people who run our cities on a day-to-day basis can live in all parts of our cities, or nearly all parts of our cities, and that comes through from people actively proposing that and just saying, well, this is part of what we do, and we're going to build in a sustainable way with good design. I think it's a great outcome. As the son of a truck driver and a cleaner who went on to own their own small business, I know that mum and dad wouldn't have been able to buy where they live now had they been trying to do it today. But the idea that someone would think far enough ahead to say, actually, we need truckies and cleaners to be able to live in all parts of our cities would be a good thing. It's good for productivity of our cities. It's good for social equity. It's good for diversity of communities. There's no downside to having people from all incomes, all ages, all walks of life living around each other. And I think that would be a good outcome.
I agree with you. Thank you, Minister.
Thanks very much for your time. Thank you.
If you have questions or thoughts to share, click the link in our show notes. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're a developer or working on a project that needs an online presence or community engagement, reach out through the same link. Alternatively, you can visit urbantalk.com.au. Don't forget to follow, leave a rating and a review. It really helps more people to find the podcast and keeps the conversations going that shape our sittings. I'm Belinda Barnett, and thank you for listening to the Urban Talk podcast.
Consulting with the community about your proposed development or planning project can be daunting and challenging, especially when media and local action groups drive public perception. But now there's a cost-effective way to avoid misrepresentation and ease public tension and resistance towards your project. Introducing Urban Talk. Urban Talk is Australia's first property development and community engagement platform. Establish a digital presence for your project that raises community awareness, answers questions, and promotes greater understanding of urban planning and development. Intuitive templates, developed using 30 years of community consultation experience, allow you to easily create a comprehensive listing for your project. Populating fields with information already at hand, your project listing becomes the community information hub, a source of truth that provides straightforward explanations, images, videos, and centralises all inquiries. Your listing is supported by site signage, notification postcards, and newsletters that direct people to the page, with the ability to track public interest in the project. Now you can provide a reliable source of information in English and 10 other languages, creating an avenue for inquiry to gain community trust and improve the path to project approval. Create your project listing today.